Welcome, everyone. We are here to an extra broadcast by Awaken Your Inner Genius tonight, and I can't tell you how excited I am. So, tonight our focus is on John Bonsall, the former president of the USP. He is going to give you the lowdown about how he came into this work and his very, very long history. But I have to tell you, I met him 4 years ago, on 4 years ago this August. Hard to believe, John, that it's been that
Wow.
long.
Yeah.
And what a journey it has been. You are in for a treat. He has done a lot of preparation for the gift he's about to give you tonight. I will be going off the stage. I'm only jumping on occasionally as needed because the focus of the extra programming that we're doing in the middle of the week is to highlight each panelist and bring what is on their heart here to our Awaken Your Inner Genius. And so, John, it is with much, much heartfelt consideration that I hand it over to you.
All right, Kimberly. Well, thank you so much. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Russell Lecture Series review. And I'll do my best to kind of bring you in, try not to make it too complicated. But this morning, as I was doing a review, it was such a wonderful thing. I'm reading the lecture series, and I got so inspired. And it dawned on me for the first time that this lecture series is basically the home study course of the Russells, our official curriculum. And in regard to the number of pages that's involved, it was almost identical. And I thought, wow, what a treat for us to have Dr. Russell lecture on the home study course in his own words, being able to take questions and try to answer them.
Motherhood.
So anyway, I thought what I would do is I'd give everyone a little background, a little history of Swannanoa and how it came into being, or excuse me, the University of Science and Philosophy, so that you kind of know where we came from and how we got to this point. So I'll take you back to I think it was close to 1870, and a gentleman named Herbert Spencer, who was a bit of a philosopher, and he felt at that time in America that the age of character had fallen so greatly that a movement of some kind was necessary to try to move the character of man forward. So in his attempts to bring great minds together, the end result was what we call the Twilight Club. And this was a group of gentlemen that were recognized in their own fields for their own expertise, artistry, writing, poetry, science, you name it. And they formed this Twilight Club. Look, and there's Doc. There's Doc at Swannanoa doing his own thing. I mean, you know, it breaks my heart. It almost brings me to tears to not be able to see Doc point and draw on those chalkboards as he was giving these lectures. But so Dr. Russell and Tom Watson, president of IBM, what they did is they moved the Twilight Club along for years. And you can see Doc there and Tom Watson and another gentleman receiving an award. And that's what they did once every year. They acknowledged someone in their field for their contribution to man. And what a wonderful, wonderful thing. We don't usually see Doc in a tuxedo there, but he was looking sharp. I like that. So as time went by, Dr. Russell and Tom Watson alternated the presidency of the Twilight Club. And then with the onset of World War II, the Twilight Club kind of floundered, if you will. It just didn't have the same participation and excitement about it. And it almost, well, basically it disappeared to a certain degree. So that brings us to the University of Science and Philosophy. And we'll go back a little bit with Doc. You know, I say Doc, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's how I refer to him in our circle. But anyway, Dr. Russell, born May 19th, 1871, all right, from Boston. And what's beautiful about Doc's life and his history is that every 7 years of his life, he had illumination. And illumination is basically, I'll give you a modern term, is a direct download from God. So every 7 years of Doctor's life, he received knowledge from behind the veil, if you will. And at the age of, and they became more intense every 7 years of his life. And what's really cool is that these illuminations took place on his birthday every year. So, and what's also interesting, I mean, figure this one out, that Doc refolded on his birthday in 1963, May 19th. Isn't that something? So anyway, when Dr. Russell was in his 49th year, he had what we call his grand illumination. And for 39 days and night, Dr. Russell is behind the veil in oneness with our Creator. Now, try to take this one on one time, guys. Just think of this. Here you are in this brilliance of light that you can't even start to explain. And you hear this silent voice that says, "You will be my next messenger to mankind. And if man needs science to know me, I'll make you the master scientist. If man needs art to know me, I'll make you the master artisan," and so on. So for 39 days and night, Dr. Russells were given the secrets of the universe. And behold, so Dr. Russell, when he came out of this 39-day and night illumination, he wrote, he wrote the Divine Iliad. And it's almost like scripture. And last week, Mr. Porter gave an introduction into the Divine Iliad and the meter into which it flows and the words that God uses to command Dr. Russell what he was supposed to do. So in his grand illumination, Dr. Russell was commanded not to give this message out until 1946, 25 years later. And you say to yourself, well, why did he have to wait 25 years? Well, the reason Dr. Russell had to wait 25 years is because in May of 1946, Dr. Russell would meet his beloved, his other half, Leo. And it's a beautiful romance. It's a beautiful story. Doc knew Leo when he was in times of struggling a little bit himself. He would go within and he would see this image and this voice of what he called his little blue girl. So anytime he needed to kind of just check out a little bit, that voice and that image of her would come to him. And he was told in his grand illumination that he would meet her. And Leo was aware of Dr. Russell's presence or her entire life as well. And also in Doc's illumination, he was given what future history would be. He was shown what World War II would be like, the carnage and so on, and the inhumanity of man to his fellow man. And so that's where the suffering. God said to Dr. Russell that man needs to suffer in order to get his attention so that we can reawaken him to his true divine self. So Leo, I love her story. And in Unit 2 of the Home Study Course, they each described their illumination and how it came about and so on. But Leo's was real short. She says, "I was born illumined." So I make a little joke out of it, a little fairy tale story, if you will, that Doc, he had to have illumination every 7 years of his life to catch up to Leo. All right. So I don't know if they would agree with my my breakdown of that or not, but that's kind of the romance story that I have there. So anyway, so from the Twilight Club, Doctor and Leo meeting, their minds came together and they realized that they were both destined for the same purpose. So as a result of that meeting and them coming together, and in 1948, the Russells decided to get married, and they traversed the country trying to find a home place, if you will, for this university that was going to be started. Now, when it first began, it was known as the Walter Russell Foundation. And then in order for it to have or to be an official curriculum, the Russells named it the University of Science and Philosophy. And they founded Swannanoa, and it was the headquarters. Look at that. See, that's almost period correct, too. Can you think of a more beautiful background to deliver God's message than a 52-room Italian marble Renaissance palace? And I had the privilege, along with my cousin Jim, to live there 2 years with Mrs. Russell. And what an experience. What an experience that was, to be able to just be with that illuminate who wrote the home study course and other books and so on. Look at those terraces. You know, Kimberly, my hands are starting to hurt and my butt's starting to hurt when you showed those 3 terraces, because Leo didn't believe in herbicides. So you had to get out there and pull the weeds with a knife. You had to pull them all by hand.
Well, when you look at this gorgeous archway, you know, what did they call that right there with all the roses? When you look at the gorgeous pergola, I can see why you all had to work so hard. It was absolutely magnificent. And when you look at just the grounds and even the paintings of the grounds, you get an idea of just how majestic and why people from all over would come over to see these grounds.
Absolutely. So we couldn't ask for a more beautiful backdrop to deliver this message, and it had to be. And then here you see the grand opening of the palace, May 2nd, 1949. And you see the welcoming line and so on. So what a wonderful thing. I mean, this was a big to do back then. And the Russells kind of became an enigma. Nobody really knew who these people were. All these rumors, you know, were floated around about the cult of Walt. And it was kind of, they called it the spooky place.
Well, I don't think people really understood then. They were speaking in a language that makes so much more sense to us now. If anything, I really think they were writing back then for what we are ready to hear now. And when you think about the courage it took, you know, as you're getting ready to go into the lectures that they actually gave at Swannanoa.
Look at that. Isn't that something?
That's why it's important to have this image in your head. We're now ready to hear what they were so far ahead of their time.
And isn't that wonderful to know that the lectures that you're about to hear and what we're going to highlight and talk about, these are actually the people that were sitting in that room or outside that Doctor was lecturing to. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to see that. There you see, there's an outside one. A little later, that's Leo speaking there. And so down the road, Kimberly, perhaps Awaken Your Inner Genius will we'll concentrate on Leo as well in some of her lectures and so on, because she had to bring the love and the humanity part to the message. Doc was pretty heavy into the science, even though he had all of it. But isn't it wonderful that she had to, and I was going to say this later on in the presentation, I might as well bring it up now, but after 2 years of these lecture series, Leo had to pull Doctor aside and I don't know what her endearing term was for Dr. Russell. She never really told us, but anyway, she said, you're talking over their heads. You've got to bring it down. You've got to word this in a manner into which the everyday person can understand. And in the 1954 lecture series, you'll hear Doc himself kind of admit that, hey, you know, maybe I was going a little too hard, too fast for people. And
that's a message, John, that the feminine is still bringing to us all. Still working on trying to find it, to make it so that more of the masses can understand. And that's part of why I was so excited about what you were going to do here this evening.
So here we are, 2025. Awaken Your Inner Genius is continuing this message. And remember, the message is for the character building of mankind. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we're going to ask for all of our listeners, that at some point in time, hopefully you can become messengers of this message and help awaken a friend or relative or business associate and move them further along in their life's journey. So without further ado, I did want to say on a personal note, that when I'm driving anywhere, whether it's going over town, going to play golf, whatever it is, I have my lecture series going all the time. All the time I am listening to Doc. And I wanted to just say, those of you that at the end of our broadcast, should you choose to start listening to Dr. Lectures, his lectures, you're going to have to get used to that Bostonian accent. And his voice is a little high pitched, but once you kind of get into it, then it'll be a piece of cake from there on out. But these lectures have helped me. Here I am, a 50-year student, and I'm still listening to Doc dictate this message every day. And when they tell you that the home study course is a lifelong study, it is exactly that. You just can't read it one day and all of a sudden you're this great aware student. And what I try to do is demonstrate every day examples of the science principles behind this message to help myself and those around me to demonstrate these principles in the most basic of form. So anyway, let's go into our lectures here. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Miss Kimberly, if we could go to page 5, and we'll start with clip 1.
Okay. Now, before we dive into that, John, I think it'd be helpful for them to hear just a random clip of Walter. So let's give them a short, so they can become accustomed to his verbiage and the way he speaks before we dive into the lecture. Is that okay with you?
Oh, absolutely. Beautiful.
So I pulled just a small snippet so that everybody can tune in. So sit back, relax, and begin to tune into the energy of Walter Russell.
Fatherhood means the giving to one's creation that which they have in themselves. They can give no more than that, because no one can give more of himself than he has to give. And the greater his God awareness, the greater he can give that to his children. And the greater a community like this unfolds in its spiritual awareness, and a community manifests the equality of father-motherhood that makes balanced mates and makes a balanced home.
So, John, I had no way of knowing back when I clicked that clip a while back that you actually were going to refer to this clip later on. So I was chuckling at that. I do want to mention to the audience that, the audio clips that you're getting ready to listen to are real. So spend a little bit of time, if you'll tell them, they're not polished up like the clip that I just showed you. What you're about to listen to are real clips. So you have to really tune in, which I think is very powerful about what you're going to go in today. So where do these clips come? Where do these audio lectures come from?
I wanted to just share with our audience, because it was a little historical fact for me too, that the Russells completed the first copyrighted home study course in 1951. And a year later, here they are giving the home study course to the world directly. Man, I would have paid big bucks for a ticket to sit in that classroom. I got to tell you, on the love side of this message, Kimberly, and looking at you reminds me of this story. When I was working at Swannanoa and I was in the office helping Angela, with wrapping books and getting things ready to take to the post office, she was recording cassettes of these lectures. And I froze. I literally froze, because that was the first time I had heard her doctor's voice. Because up to that point, all I've ever did was hear about Dr. Russell from Leo and reading about him with the books and so on and so forth. And I was just like mesmerized to hear his voice and so on. And within seconds, Leo came in the door and she politely asked Angela to turn that off. And so I went and spoke to her after that, and she says, "You don't understand. Doesn't matter how spiritually you are aware." Okay, how she missed him, and just hearing his voice reminded her of that oneness that they shared, the love that they shared with each other. So I could respect that, but I didn't want that to take away from my joy,
Right.
of hearing his voice. So here I am. 50 years later, I get an opportunity to actually talk about the lectures that that I was listening to.
And what was really fun for me, John, a couple of things. I agree with you. So when I was here at the university for a year before I ever heard Leo's voice. And so I, at that time, didn't even understand the power of these audio lectures. When you hear someone's voice, you actually tune into their energetic signature. And that's an important piece of the world. So we're actually going to place in the chat box where you can get copies of these USBs. Now they're on USBs. We've come a long way since cassettes. They're on USBs. You can plug them into your laptop. You can plug them even into those USB outlets of your car. And that's where a lot of this can come from.
I wanted to just share with people how important it is that we have these lecture series in audio. Imagine if we could have recorded Jesus's Sermon on the Mount, the way it was given, the way it was intended. How wonderful would that have been? But the love ye one another is all that was necessary. All right. And then here it was a couple thousand years later, Doc and Leo put love ye one another at the base of the Christ statue. And you will find out through these lecture series of the purpose is to awaken within you your oneness with your fellow man. That's a big step for a lot of people. All right. It's not an easy thing, but someday when you have that recognition and that understanding, your own life will change and you will attract people to you that are of like thinking and want to do things that are in a similar thing. So Kimberly, I thought what we'll do is let's go to our first little clip here of Doc on page 5. We'll listen to him and then we'll come back and I'll discuss that in some detail to try to help some of our newer students and our audience understand what Doc is bringing to us.
All right. So this is straight from the 1952 lecture series. Let us begin.
An action reaction is, as those of the advanced students know, because it's in the latter part of the course, the law that is written there, every action is voided as it occurs, is repeated as it is voided, and is recorded as it is repeated. It doesn't void at the next minute. It's voided at the instant of action. It's like shooting a bullet somewhere and then stopping the bullet. The moment, the instant the bullet starts this way, its equal opposite starts the other way. Any action whatsoever of any kind, which is motion, two-way motion, every action is disturbance of an equilibrium, of rest. The universe itself is in equilibrium, in rest. If there were no motion whatsoever, no desire fraction, you would find the basis of it, the background of it, a formless, dark universe of just space. No form in it. That space being mind. You couldn't locate any point anywhere any more than you could put your finger in a lake and pull it out and look for the hole. In another minute, if you put it in again, you never can find that place. There's no dimension in the universe of rest. That universe of rest in the course is called the undivided universe. In the Bhagavad Gita is referred to constantly as the undivided universe. The mind universe, God's universe, the still universe, the fulcrum of the universe of motion.
Wow. So
John, before you go into a description, I do want to mention something to the audience. So in the future, when we do the rest of these around these audio lectures, we will work to get them in a video file so that we can show the verbiage on the screen. So we're working on those things behind the scenes. It's important for us as you go into that. This is one of the first times that we're actually diving into the core content around these audio files. So we're literally like dusting off a relic from the past to make it easy for the audience. So I will go off screen. I know you're going to dive into it, but I just wanted all of our listeners to know
Well,
that
one
that is
moment before you go. Speaking of relics, so for our audience, I just want you to know that Kimberly thought, geez, who can I get to talk about these? And she goes, well, there's John Bonsall. He's old enough. He's a relic. Maybe he could do this for us.
You know what, John? I will give you credit. The first time I walked into this Russell Museum, and you were the first one that I met that day. There you were in your three-piece suit with your vest and your tie, and you walked out of the 1920s, like not a relic, like a seasoned relic, but like a wonderful a wonderful memory of a bygone era of where character was like, wow, just there manifested. So I want to give you credit. You look dashing this evening, and I would like everyone to know that that was really what it was. Very fun seeing you almost walk out of this lovely historical museum and have that kind of dignity and respect for the message. So it is all yours.
Kimberly. All right. So you heard Doc talk about space, and you heard him talk about mind, the undivided. And this science, in this lecture series that Doc is doing, he referenced the Bhagavad Gita, and how in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna referred to the undivided as well. So here, that is like 3,000 years ago or more, perhaps. And it's beautiful that as your awakening develops, you'll be able to understand that this message is not new, but it's new in the way that it was delivered this time, because the language of science wasn't even known yet in Krishna's time and Jesus's time. So the time is right. It is now for this message to make a deep move into the consciousness of man. So it's important for people to know that mind is undivided. You heard Dr. Russell speak of the fulcrum. We refer to it as the zero. But from that fulcrum and from that zero, from that undivided, everything known to man in the physical world starts from there and returns to it. Now, in that little clip, the reason I asked that one to be played, you heard Doc start out with what we call the avoidance principle, or what's known as the avoidance principle in nature. So as any action happens, it is simultaneously and sequentially voided. So there was a quote that we had these little cards around the palace at the time, and it said, "Now is eternity." And that's all we have is that moment. And because of this avoidance principle, so as something happens, it's voided. As it's voided, it is recorded to only be repeated forever and ever. But it's important for people to know that from where it comes is the undivided, still white medic light of mind. And here we are. We got these bodies, right? And we think these bodies are us. And Dr. Russell is going to get into that a little bit later. So the first thing that we have to train ourselves to do is to convince ourselves that our body is not us. You are a microscopic dot of light that was created directly from God. Now, you talk about gifts. How about that one time? That here we were born directly of God, and we have eternity. Yes, Kimberly?
So I was just jumping in because, John, I was thinking about those pictures of when they were at Swannanoa, thinking through what it must have been like. They had just lived through the atomic bomb in 1945. They had just finished World War II. What it must have been like to hear these kinds of philosophies, how thirsty they must have been.
Yes, and I'm hoping. So the time is right. The time is right for humanity. A change is coming. And later on in one of our clips, Dr. Russell will explain to you astrologically, actually, and through the Russell chart of the elements, Dr. Russell will share with you why change is happening. So remember, the most powerful thing in the universe is desire. Because desire is what takes that undivided and divides it into two opposites. And those two opposites have to have an equator. You have male, you have female, you have the red representing the male, you have the blue representing the female. So for you to kind of acquaint yourself, look at a rainbow, study it, look at the sequence of colors, and no matter where you go in the universe, that same sequence and that same pattern repeats itself. Why? Because that is how the Creator creates, is with those light waves in that sequence. So the complexity and the multiplicity of those waves is what gives us matter, what gives form to everything that we know and that we see. So, Miss Kimberly, if we could, let's move along a little bit in our understanding here and see if we can go to page 9 and clip number 2. And let's see what Doc has to say here in clip 2.
All right, let's do that. Here comes the audio, and here comes
on the procedure of work habits of Thomas Edison and enabled him to make so many inventions. Did not Edison conduct many experiments? Yes, he conducted many experiments. But now there's a lot of talk about the number of hours that Edison worked. I know his habits very well. In the few weeks that I was very close with him, he'd come and punch a clock. There was some sort of an idea of he's giving an example to his employees how many times he worked, how many hours he worked. He'd punch the clock an hour or two before anybody else, and perhaps punch it on the outward going 2 or 3 hours later than anybody else. But Edison was perfectly free to come and go in and out and in through it to his garden or anywhere else without punching the clock. In the meantime, he had a couch in his laboratory. He had a great big leather lounge in his office, comfortable pillows on it. He spent a tremendous amount of time in walking, talking with God, in meditation, in rest, sleep. When he wanted to be alone, he wanted to be alone, and he would be alone.
So where does knowledge come from? It doesn't come from books. It comes from mind. It comes from God. And you have to train yourself to know how to reach that point of stillness so that you can listen to that inner voice. And anything and everything that you want to know, that you need to know, you simply have to ask for it. And again, that's in the Divine Iliad. It's repeated and repeated. Ask and ye shall receive. And that's why in the beginning of the home study course, the Russells go into depth about prayer and meditation and how important they are to your own growth and your own well-being. So that in the world which you desire, you just make it intense. You focus on it. You ask God to do it. And then guess what? You don't sit back and rest on your loins. Then the other half of what you're desiring is on you. You've got to put the physical effort forward to manifest the idea, the desire which you have asked God for. And that's how it works. It's simple. And there are people in the world that do this knowingly, and there's a lot of people that do this unknowingly. But how beautiful it is that if you are aware of these principles, these simple principles, how your life can be changed like that, that you can now be in command of your own life and what is to come, because you are thinking it into being in advance. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. So Doc was talking about Edison, and he was the official sculptural biographer for the Edison family. And what he was trying to share with you there is that it wasn't just an instantaneous thing that Edison invents the light bulb, and all of a sudden it's there. And it was years and years of research and trial and error. But the beauty of what he was saying there was the couch, the pillows, how he would take time to quiet himself. He would go into meditation, and he was talking about the filament that would be needed to make the light bulb work. And he experimented with several different kinds of metals and things until God finally told him what he needed to make that work. So that's just a simple example of desire coming forth and him asking God to present it to you. So, and it's beautiful. So here we have an historical figure, Thomas Edison, right? Everybody can relate to him inventing the light bulb. Well, guess what? The same principle applies to Tom Edison as it does to you and everybody else. So that's the moral of that story.
I love it. I love it. And that's part of what's so fun is for those of you that are new to Russell work, not only do you have the spirituality and the philosophy, and you have the amazing art and the science, but you also have this lovely historical component that I think is so lovely when you look at some of the, and you can certainly go to philosophy.org and you can see the gallery, and we'll put that link in there as well. But you see all the history. And John, you bringing this whole idea of Edison to light for us, it's like walking into yesterday through a simple portal called YouTube.
Well, there's another story related to this, and stay on, don't disappear. So in the museum, Dr. Russell has two distinct busts of Mark Twain. So you have to understand, Dr. Russell, Mark Twain, Sarah Clemens, Osip Gabrowitz, they were really close friends. And they would meet on weekends and speak spirituality and so on and so forth. So when Dr. Russell was commissioned to do the Mark Twain Memorial, all right, so he began. Now, he knows Mark Twain personally and intimately, okay? And as he was going, he was about halfway through, maybe 3/4 the way through, and he just puts down his utensils, and he's like, yeah, this isn't working out. So a mutual friend shows up to Doc's studio, and they start conversing, and Doc said to him, he said, look, he says, I've been commissioned to do this thing with Twain. And he said, it's just not working out the way that it needs to be. So this guy's answer to Dr. Russell was, you are trying to sculpt Mark Twain, your friend, and not Mark Twain, the writer. Mm. And it was a huge awakening for Doc. So that allowed him to move forward. So that's why we have two distinct Mark Twain busts. So
interesting.
We'll say Mark Twain, the friend, and then you got Mark Twain, the writer.
And I wanted to show this image as well, because when it's important, I believe, when people are hearing you talk about this, I mean, these are the kinds of things that he was doing on a regular basis. Where does this photo come from?
I'll tell you what, though, it's interesting that what you see there. You see that gentleman in dead center in the uniform? Mm-hmm. And that's Captain Colin Kelly, the first casualty of World War II. And so Dr. Russell did the Four Freedoms Memorial, and he's working on a miniature there. And so that's how those two pieces in that picture are tied together.
And this is him actually in his Carnegie Hall studio in New York City. So that's
yes, and then the original clay of the Mark Twain Memorial, we can see most of it in the background there. And then on the far right, you see the freedom from want. One of the four freedoms there in a larger size. Yes. So it's just wonderful to be able to see Doc in that. And just think of it, Kimberly. He didn't even begin sculpting till he was 56 years of age.
You know, that was one of the things that inspired me when I first walked into the museum. I heard that piece of the story. And so when I first walked in, I was 53. And I remember thinking, wow, he didn't even start until he was 56. There's hope for me yet. There's more potential to tap into.
Whew. Yes, indeed.
So where are we going in the next?
All right. So I thought we would move along, and let's go to page 12 and clip number 3, and let's see what Doc is going to share with us next.
We do not create ideas in our mind either. They're there. The idea is always there. All idea is in all mind. All of it. All of idea of everything that makes the whole basis of the creation is there. And you know any man is big enough to want all of the idea. No one wants to be the whole creator of everything. God can, yes, but not man. You don't want to be, you have no desire to create a mountain or an earth or a solar system. It's too big a body for you to create. You desire to create that kind of a body that's in the measure of your capacity to create. You desire then to take out from all idea a part of that idea and give it a body. Just as all the idea of creation is manifested by different units, multiple units of every species of thing and every all sorts of forms, minerals, animals, and vegetables. So it is that which each person wants to do, he desires to do, he asks for a concept of an idea to be taken out of the whole and given to him with the responsibility of giving it a body and with the promise of the God force that if he starts doing it, God will work with him to give it. That's all there is in the whole of creation, nothing else. So you take it out of the stillness by going into the stillness and getting it. That which you want, in the measure of what you want. As I said yesterday, I'm speaking about the big ship. If you want to build a little boat, that's the desire of a little boat, but the idea of a boat is in creation.
All right. Whew. Here's what's beautiful about what Doc is saying there. Let's put things into perspective. So you see my little uranium glass display behind me, and you see the Grand Symphony of Creation and different things. Everything that is comes from mind and is in mind. There are no new ideas. It cracks me up how we have this copyright system, in the United States and maybe worldwide. But how silly is that? That if you desired anything, God will give it to you. But somebody thinks that he has the copyright to knowledge and to new knowledge. It's kind of ridiculous for me. But here's a beautiful part of what Doc was saying there. That idea made manifest, whatever it is. So like these glass, whatever it is, it never leaves mind. So I'm not sure if you can comprehend that or kind of digest that thought. That's pretty powerful. But what we do as co-creators, so we conceive an image, an idea. And through desire and the intensity of the desire is what brings forth that idea into the 3D world, and it is made manifest. And one of the other beautiful things that Doc said there on a philosophical standpoint is that try not to ask someone to go beyond that which they do not know. They can only give you that which they know. And so therefore, try not to judge your fellow man, because wherever he is in his unfolding is perfect for him. And we're not all perfect, because if the idea of man was complete, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this anyway. So that's the lesson. That's what I pulled from those two paragraphs to let you know that idea is, it always will be. It never leaves mind, but it comes from mind only to return to it. So, Miss Kimberly, why don't you come on back here?
Okay.
I love seeing your face.
I am right here supporting you every step of the way. John actually asked me to be on here tonight as a balance of the masculine and the feminine, as
Yes.
we try to be an example for that. And so I'm holding this whole space in love and also providing lots of love as we're all teaching ways to be able to teach these very big concepts, John. So,
Yes.
as you're doing this and we were listening to the audio, James and I are behind the scenes saying it great. It would be helpful to have the words up on the screen. So know that we are a group of students just offering all of this as a gift of love to all of those who are listening. So where are we going, John?
Well, what stands out to me is to know how much more detail the home study course is from the lecture series, even though in size and concept and idea, it's all the same. But Doc is delivering it as Doc would deliver it, right? And you notice how his voice inflection goes up when he wants to drive that point home. So when you hear that, you need to take notice. And then how the Russells duplicated that in the home study course, and Kimberly, you know this, is pay attention to the bold print and the underlined print.
Yes.
So think next time you read that, just think of Doc raising his voice to you.
That'll be right there on focus, John. So
Absolutely.
do you want to head to clip 4 next?
I would like to. That would be page 14 of the 52 series, clip number 4. And let's see what Doc is going to bring us this time.
On the way is the sun. On our carbon. The sun, our carbon, our man, and his goal and his intention. Now here's what I am right now. Pretty near there. Not a true sphere. The sun, our sun, is not a true sphere. Our sun is slightly oblate. Its axis of rotation and its magnetic poles do not exactly coincide with each other. When this is a perfectly true sphere, when it's true sphere here, its polar rotation and its magnetic poles will coincide. It will revolve true on both axes, and then it will be carbon. Until it is carbon, it is not a balanced element. A balanced element means truly mated into pairs of carbon, because carbon is two, positive and negative, divided by an equator.
Now, John, I do want to, that's a big one. And I noted one thing that we're learning is, these were AI transcriptions of the audio files. And so this is our first attempt to try to use some of these things. It needs correction. So I do want to mention that to everybody. Needs correction. We always encourage you to get your own USB files from the philosophy.org so you can listen to the lectures and learn what your creator wants you to learn from each of those, John. I loved the elements. Why the elements of the lecture you pulled out? Why did you select this one?
Now, this one is important. So the precursor to this paragraph and that which follows is important. And what Doc is trying to lead to by explaining the maturity of the sun and how it evolves is that he's leading into the transformation of man. And we call it, and the Russells calls it, cosmic man. And the science of the cosmos, there's a transformation in Unit 9 of the home study course, where the Russells change it up for you. Now it's time to put your big boy pants on, and now you're going to move forward, and you're going to learn the same scientific principles that God knows and how he creates. But the transformation of man is coming. And in this lecture series, Doc mentions how man is only 6,000 years out of the jungle from being basically a human animal. All right. And the evolution of man, the evolution of the idea of man is a continuum. And my cousin Jim references barbaric man from the jungle, then got pagan man. All right. So we are transitioning. And in this lecture part here, the before and after, so Dr. Russell explains to you that once the sun is mature and it is a circle and it becomes pure carbon, then its light turns to yellow. And now it is complete, it is perfect. And so mankind being in that octave, and I'm not going to get in too deep into the octave waves right now, but in that carbon octave, man also will transform into that complete being of understanding and knowing his divinity and his oneness with the Creator. Then the planet, in who knows how many billions or millions of years it'll take, as we swing out to where the orbit of Mars is, all right, Venus will then work its way into our orbit where the Earth was. And then everything that you can imagine, animal, mineral, vegetable, in all of creation will unfold in its time. So when the temperatures and pressures and so on, when we have atmosphere on Venus the way that we have it in Mars, then the idea of everything and anything will just continue. And we just keep going on into forever. What a wonderful thought. So if you think that there's an ending to everything, there isn't. There is only forever and the ongoingness into forever. And what a beautiful thought that is. So that's what, and that again is the beauty of this message. Yes, philosophically, we can kind of bring you up to date and repeat what's been said before, but the division here is now Dr. Russell will give you the science of the Creator, how the Creator creates suns. Like Doc said, all right, you want to be co-creator? Well, go create a mountain, go create a sun, and see how you make out with that one. But if you stay within your own boundaries.
I found that very interesting, John. So it made me think about what would it be like to create a universe. So to me, what the subject was as we were thinking through it, and I'd love to hear from some of those others that are commenting, is the only reason we don't think about creating those things is because we keep ourselves limited to our 3D reality here. What if we're right now busy trying to have people begin to think of owning their potential here in this reality. So I was like, isn't it fascinating how he's encouraging us to even think about larger? So I love that.
And it's word selection, Kimberly. Isn't it beautiful if people could hear that they are unlimited and they have unlimited possibilities, that anything that they desire, if they hold that desire long enough and is willing to put the effort forward to bring it into being and to manifest it, the universe is theirs.
I like the thought of that. So where are you taking us in our universe now, John?
All right. As we wind down, we've got 2 more to go. We're going to go to page 16, and I believe this is clip 5, right?
It is clip 5.
All right.
All right, let's take a look.
To begin with, can those in the invisible world, those, it's the same as I said we before, meaning bodies. There aren't any those in the invisible world, meaning we, meaning bodies. And the bodies that are in the visible world have senses and nerve ganglions and connected with brains, sensations and memories. We return those to Earth, and we return it together, we return all of it with the machinery of Earth into Earth, all of the mechanics of it, all of the electrical sensations of it with the possibility of sensation. We return it to Earth, the body, but we do not return that which is ourselves to Earth. We return the body to it, but the memory of everything in the body is recorded in the inert gas, which is the soul seed pattern.
Dr. Russell was leading into You're on mute there, Kimberly.
I said, sorry, that got clipped off. There was more to that, but we can read it if you want like me to put that back on the screen for you.
No, it's all right. I'll pick up where you left off there. What Dr. Russell is talking about there, he's talking about palm readers and spiritualism and how that all came about. And so he gives you the real truth. All right. Yes, we have these physical bodies. And he was explaining to you what these physical bodies are made up of. All right. So we've been told for thousands of years, right? Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. So our bodies come from the earth and they must be returned to it. But you, the soul seed of you, is eternal. So upon death, you don't have a body to go with you, right? It's like me. I'm not going to be taking my 3-piece suit to the other side, okay?
And that is such a shame, John, because I'm sure you would look really sharp wherever you were in the cosmos.
Well, at least I would try to. But anyway, I got to leave my suits behind, okay? So what Dr. Russell was trying to do is to help everyone understand. And he used the term spiritualism, where people say, oh, well, I talked to so-and-so's uncle, and I can bring your uncle here and show you. And then in that following paragraph, Doc talks about, well, is your uncle wearing the suit, and how is he avoiding the aircraft that are flying around the earth? Is he avoiding it that way? So he kind of makes it sound ridiculous to drive the point home. All right. So where do we go when we refold, or where do we go when we die? So your own personal soul seed, that which you are. All right. So whether it's me, Kimberly, or producer James behind the scene, we are the totality of all the incarnations that we've had up to this point. Some of us have had millions of incarnations. Some of us has only had a few. But in either case, we are the totality of all those incarnations and all the lessons that we've learned up to this point now. I guess I'm trying to, I don't want to be old school on you. All right. I was getting ready to say about, Kimberly, you'll love this. I was getting ready to mention a record or a record player. So I don't know how many young listeners are going to, you're on mute. You're on mute, sweetie.
So those things come around. Let me know if any of you remember it that are listening right now, if you remember your record players from way back. But, they're now a novelty, John. So the younger people are buying these as novelties. So what comes around goes around.
All right. So my point with these records or a disc or, thumb drives, whatever, we all have our own thumb drive. Every thought, every action that you've ever had is recorded in your own soul seed. And upon your refolding of you giving your body back to the earth, your soul seed is then recorded or ends up in the inert gas that's appropriate to your unfolding. And so that's the big mystery in science, are these inert gases. Doctor refers to them as master tones as well. So they don't react with anything. They don't react with each other. So the big mystery. Well, the mystery's over. The Russells explained to you what the inert gases are and what they do. So here we are on the carbon octave. All right. And everything that's related to this octave is recorded in its own inert gas, and it is there forever. So let me give you a visual. You see the two posters behind me? Okay. Try to imagine them being turned 90 degrees to where they're flat, and you're looking down and you see those spirals spinning at the speed of light. And then within that spiral are 4 distinct rings, 4 pairs of rings, and spinning at the speed of light. Okay. So when desire takes place, when the idea that you're trying to manifest, so we'll just say in God's case, in manifesting the elements, that is where they are born from their own appropriate inert gas. And there are 9 of them, the 9 octaves of creation, the 9 gates. So we have some fun with it. Our staff and others, we talk about the 9 gates and how some people are at a certain gate level and so on. So have some fun in life, have some joy. There you go, Kimberly. Yes, thank you for showing that diagram. And you can see the inert gases lined up. And then
it looks very complicated when you first look at it. So for those of you that are new, but we actually have some plans in June to show how this is actually broken down, because this, I believe personally, that this is one of the most powerful diagrams that he had in the Universal One. And when you really begin to understand it, I even can't wait to show you, John. We even have a way to explain this using nesting dolls. So what's really fun when you tap into the creativity of what the creator is about, all of a sudden you're like, wow, how many different ways can I actually use things on this reality to explain what's in front of you?
am I hearing that you're holding back on me, Kimberly?
You know what? I keep coming up with all kinds of toys, more toys to come.
Oh, that is wonderful. You guys can't imagine all the wonderful creative ideas that Kimberly has brought to us to help demonstrate and simplify these what can be or seem to be complicated issues, but they're not. And I'll repeat again, like we do every Sunday, if you can read and count to 9, you can master the secrets of the universe. So try to convince yourself that it's not, and even though it looks complicated, may sound complicated, what the hell is John talking about? Inert gases and undivided and stillness and so on. But that's the beauty of the home study course. Russell's will walk you through it A to Z, and it is beautiful, and your life will change. So in wrapping up, we're going to hear one more from Doc, page 18, and this will be clip number 6, Kimberly, if you will.
Okay, here we go.
Into meditation with you and back into your soul consciousness. It will go and you will accept or eliminate it. God is the judge in that, and God will tell you whether it's right or not right. If you desire to know what's right or not right. What I am trying to accentuate here is I do not say do not ask anyone and learn from God. I say do not go and ask of another depending upon that other. Do not ask with a feeling that you need to ask of another and depend upon that other. If you do, you weaken yourself. If you ask advice from another in relation to your business or something, you are weakening yourself because you're diluting your strength. You're depending upon another person's judgment instead of your judgment. He does not know your problem. No matter how you explain it to him, he cannot make your problem his problem. He'll take it into his ears, but he won't take it into his heart. There's only one person on earth that will take that problem into his heart, and that's your husband or your wife. They live together, your problems are the same. You can ask of each other and you work together because your problem is the same. They understand it. You're not asking advice then. One person is seeking knowing. Go and say, well, God didn't hear a word I said. Hasn't fair. Fault's yours, not his. You haven't gone to him.
Wow. Oh, now, I guess what's the term I want to use for Kimberly and Ken? Our cosmic lovebirds. And their story is beautiful, how they've come together. I've got a chance to know. I've known, like you said, Kimberly for 4 years, and I've got to know Ken really well over the last year and a half, and to see their growth together and how this message has become the commonality between the two of them, and everything else becomes less meaningful, if you will. And I do want to thank Kimberly and Ken for their contributions to this message and all of their hard work, all that goes behind the scenes. And so, whatever little bit that I can add to this, Kimberly, I just want to let you know that I recognize that, and I appreciate both of you.
Well, now we have this on permanent record, John. So I'll be holding that to you, and
I know.
I want to say a gracious thank you to you, because not only have you inspired me over the past 4 years, I have seen just your dedication in general, and we have a lot more that we'll be sharing with our awakened audience before. And if you all would just extend an appreciation there in the chat box, because I know all of our panelists are spending so much time preparing and bringing forth these gifts. And so, John, I genuinely appreciate that. But what we all have shared, you, Ken, myself, Jim, Karen, and Margaret, and all of those, is that how much we just love the lessons and the wisdom and the light that Walter and Leo brought to the world.
Well, thank you. I want to wrap up this evening's presentation of the Russell lecture by just commenting on what Doc was referring to there. Leo had a beautiful saying. I want to say Leo. It could have been both Doc and Leo. So the point in that last paragraph or two that Doc laid out for you is, when you have God as your teacher, you need no earthly teachers. So if information is what you're looking for, then go read a book and go download something and so on. But when you want to know something, ask God. Go directly to God. And it's wonderful. You hear Doc talk about that once he turned 7 years old, God basically told him, you don't need to read books. Whatever you need to know, I will give you. So depending on your understanding, depending on where you want to go, how you want to get there, there is a roadmap. And that roadmap for us is the home study course, is the University of Science and Philosophy. And I'm going to end my part on this with a Leo Russell quote. You can live either a purposeful or purposeless life. The choice is yours. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining me and joining Kimberly this evening and allow me to expand a little bit on the Russell series. Now, I told Kimberly this morning, I got bad news for you and I got good news for you. I told her, I said, Kimberly, my God, I've been sitting here for 2 hours. I've only got to page 16. I said, what the hell was I thinking that I'm going to talk about the lecture series in an hour, right? But the good news is, and I made this promise to Kimberly, that I will take this lecture series and I will edit it, and on my own accord, we'll turn it into book form, and we'll try to bring that to the surface, if you will, and have something brand new for our audience and all of our seekers of the light to enjoy. So
Gracious thank you. And one of the other volunteers of the University of Science Philosophy are the ones who actually did the first attempt at doing the AI script. And John said, a 50-year student said it was incredibly helpful, even as you were studying and preparing for this. So let us know what you think, everyone who's listening in. There's much more to come. And if a 50-year student can find even more to dive into, then it's like a treasure hunt, John. It's like a big cosmic treasure hunt. And so I want to say thank you. When we came up with the idea of doing these extra sessions for Awaken, it was a way for you to just get to know the panel. And so as we wrap up here, John, I just would like you to share, what this message is about was natural law and living philosophy. And so when you're listening to these audio scripts and these lectures from Walter Russell, what does it just do for you personally? I know at the beginning you said it inspires you, but I want everybody to know that this isn't just you being in your official capacity. You are a Russell student at heart. And just remind everybody who might have jumped on at the end here about why it was important for your life.
Well, Kimberly, that's a wonderful Wonderful thing that you're asking. In my everyday life, what I do, I try, everything is acknowledging God. I'm grateful to God for everything. I'm a sunrise, sunset guy, but I also seek beauty in everything. So whether it's that little whisper, little chirper of the bird in the morning at the breaking of dawn, all right, if it's the wind blowing, and I hear the leaves or I hear the branches back and forth, that reminds me. That reminds me of the gift that we have. But I know I can measure how far I've come as an individual because as I'm listening to Doctor's Lecture Series, and I've listened to them over and over again, I find myself being able to finish the statement for Doc when he has his pauses. So it's like I almost know what's coming. And it allows me to reflect back to see how far I've come as an individual in understanding and accepting and living. And that's the most difficult part about this message is living it. Leo says the greatest challenge of any human being is to accept their divinity and then live it. But if you want to be a Russell student, it's a big responsibility. And the one big challenge that you have is trying to live this message. And we know that you can only live it to the degree that you understand it and so on. So,
and John, when I first came in here, as we wrap up here, I remember being a new student and I used to get really confused at when you used to talk about this as a message. It was, in fact, the word almost turned me off at first. I'll be honest with you. You heard me say that many times. And then the more you get into it, what happens is your heart just grows to such a degree that the message is everyone in humanity understanding their divinity. That is the message. And that when people begin to realize their divinity, our world is going to change. And that's what we're all waking up to. So for any of you that have never quite understood that, I wanted to just jump in because John was very patient for me as I went through and he would talk about this message. And I was still stuck in my old Southern Baptist routine. And I've since laid that down and understand that this message is the message of love, the message of making sure that we all wake up to our divinity and a message of rhythmic balance interchange. And so there are messages and messages and messages within the work that I believe that the Russell work actually puts the puzzle pieces on the perimeters of so many of the religious beliefs out there and helps make it into a more complete picture. So I want to say thank you for your heart tonight, John.
Absolutely. You bet. Well, listen, depending upon the response that we get, and if I can be brought back by popular demand, we'll try to continue this Russell Lecture Series.
All right, we'll do that. A gracious thank you to everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Continue to share these things. We'll have new things to announce for the Awakening Inner Genius. We are taking some of our smaller video vignettes, such as the Salutation of the Day by Ken Pearson. We are translating it. We've been asked to translate it into Pakistan, into Mandarin, and into Spanish, and we're going to try that, and we'll work on trying to do that with a lot of our other works out there. So keep spreading the message. Lots of powerful things, and John, who knows, maybe that will be the message that gets out there in the world. We only have a few billion people to reach. So I think we'll all be busy for the rest of our life.
Oh yeah. Yes, we will. Well, thank everyone. Thank you, Kimberly. All right.
All right. See you on Sunday, everyone. Take care. Until next time.
Thank you, guys. I don't know how to do that heart thing yet, Kimberly. I'm working on it.
I'll do it on your behalf, John.
All right, sweetie.